Good morning and welcome to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm Dane Waters. And today I'm in Kyiv, Ukraine. You know, we always have in-studio guests and we talk to people about the world. But one thing that we will be doing more often is that as I travel the world, I will be doing on-location reporting just to give you a heads up about what's going on. You know, Kyiv is a stronghold in this war. You know, if you look around, you can see where life continues as much as possible, given the circumstances. Every night I've been here, we've had air raids and we've had to go to the bomb shelters. And so it's a weird life where people do work every day, but they recognize and they realize that, you know, war is a reality. And so they have to go to the bomb shelters. But what really makes you understand how the war really is impacting day-to-day life is that let's take a look at what's here at Independence Square. I'm going to turn around the camera here and let you see it. So this is Independence Square. This is where Maidan was, where the Orange Revolution was, where basically everything that's historic that's happened in Ukraine's history has taken place in the square. But let's look here. Here is a memorial to all the soldiers who have died. Look at their photos. Every flag represents a body, a soldier. So people come here from around the country to post their stories about their families. Thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers have given their lives, not just protecting Ukraine, but trying to defeat authoritarianism and keeping all of us safe around the world, trying to keep freedom and democracy safe. It's amazing. It goes on and on and on. All of these photos, all of these flags. You have people here paying tribute to all of these soldiers who have made, and also civilians who have made the ultimate sacrifice for freedom and democracy. So let's just take a moment and reflect. Reflect on what they've done, not just for their country, but for people everywhere, for every democracy-loving country in the world. They are keeping the authoritarians at bay, and we should thank them. This is why when we talk about on the show how everything fits together, it fits together because of things like this. We are not alone, and we have to make sure they realize they're not alone. So it's very sombering, very sobering. So over the following week, I'll be traveling throughout Ukraine. I'll be sending other messages that we'll use in the show. But anyway, thank you for joining Dane Waters for Around the World with Dane Waters, and we'll be back soon. Thank you very much. Good morning, and welcome to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters. As you saw in that opening montage, I'm in Ukraine. Earlier in the week, I was in Kyiv. I've been traveling around the country. I'm currently in Vinnytsia. And, it's been a very sobering trip. The last few days, I've been visiting hospitals, military hospitals, trying to see how they're treating the soldiers. But also, more importantly, battles are not just won on the battlefield. Battles are won by supporting those people, the families and the doctors and the nurses and the NGOs and the other individuals that provide the backbone and honestly the true defense against the authoritarians who are attacking Ukraine. A simple thing in Ukraine, there's a big thing where husbands have gone off to the front lines and unfortunately either their husbands have become POWs or they've been killed in action. And their wives don't even know how to drive their car. So one of the things that I witnessed was there's just huge NGO here in Vinnytsia that's helping women learn how to drive cars, their husbands' cars, so they actually can, live their lives. Because Ukraine is actually outside the montage you see behind me of Kyiv. It's a very remote country. So as I said, it's been very sobering, but it's the reality. And what's happening around the world, we're seeing more and more conflict as far as the world's becoming a more hostile place, no matter what continent you're on. So what I'd like to do is we will take a quick break here for 90 seconds, and then I'll come back and we will be talking with Ambassador Edward Boateng of Ghana, talking about what's happening in his country and also how it integrates with the rest of the world. So thank you again for being with me for Around the World with Dane Waters. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. As you saw there, that we're very honored today to have with us Ambassador Edward Boateng. I have to make sure I get it right. As I said, I'm an Alabama boy. I try to tell people I can't even pronounce my own name, let alone other people's names. But it's an honor to have you here with us. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, what I'd like to talk about, you saw the opening segment. I'm in Ukraine doing some traveling and just checking. And where it segues in is that Ghana is one of the few African nations that where the president actually stood up in support of Ukraine. And I know that throughout Africa and throughout the world, especially here in Ukraine, people I've spoken to, they've been very supportive and thankful for that support from Ghana. So what I'd like to ask you is, I know there's a presidential election going on, but is this presidential election in any way going to impact the foreign policy of the country, do you believe?
No, our foreign policy will not change, irrespective of which party is in power. I think our foreign policy has been consistent since independence from 1957. And that was why our president stood up and spoke in favor of Ukraine. I think what's happening in Ukraine and most parts of the world is sad. It's because of the shift of multilateralism more to individualism. Countries are becoming more and more inward-looking, and I think that's what is fostering most of these shifts around the world. It's also about poverty. I think in our part of the world, a lot of the conflicts really stems from majority of the people being left behind in terms of the creation of wealth, in terms of education, in terms of us access to basic needs like good health facilities. And I'm hoping that with the growth of democracy around the continent, we will turn our attention to these things, because if we can provide the basics, I think it's going to help stem the tide. I think for Ghana, and that's one of our lucky breaks, and I pay tribute to our founding president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and my current president, who have made education their cornerstone. And today in Ghana, we have the free SHS, where every single child born can go through education from primary to secondary school, high school. And then if they're not able to enter the university, there's also the TVET scheme where you can go for skills training. I think if more countries can adopt measures like this, it will stem the tide of a lot of these conflicts. But yes, your report from it was very sombering, and I'm hoping that the world would find a way to stop all these conflicts timely, because many young innocent lives are being lost. And in a place like Ukraine, if you cast your mind forward 10 years or 15 years from today, where is their labor force going to be? Because the young people are being drafted off to the war front, and most of them are not coming back. So it's really sombering, and I'm hoping that we can do something about it. Not only Ukraine, but also in places like Palestine and all these conflicts that are growing up in the Middle East. Over 50,000 people have died in the Palestinian Gaza area the last 1 year. And I think it's time that the world stood up for what is right and what is wrong. And that is why I really appreciated my president for standing up for what is right. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I think it's critical that more world leaders stand up. I mean, I do believe, that we're heading in a direction where the world is being clearly divided between authoritarianism and democracy and freedom. And I know this. We're gonna get to talking about the actual presidential election here, but you are an expert in foreign policy. Being a former ambassador to China, I have tremendous respect for your viewpoint when it comes to foreign policy. So there's a couple more questions about that before we get to the elections. I mean, when it comes to Africa as a continent, do you believe, I would say that the continent is probably divided. We've had, 5 coups. You've got, South Africa, is now getting more involved in BRICS. Do you see that there's a division in Africa about when it comes to conflicts like Ukraine? And do you think that division can be mitigated? And do you think countries like Ghana can take a more active role in trying to bring Africa together as far as supporting these type of conflicts?
Well, our president stood up for Ukraine, the same way he also stood up against the coups that have happened in our backyard in the ECOWAS region. But unlike, with Ukraine, you have Russia attacking Ukraine. I mean, there are antecedents and, from the Russian side, they have their version of the story. From the Ukraine side, you have their side of their version of the story. But it is not right. And I'm saying that the world leaders have to stand up for what is right. I mean, truth has to be told. A lot of these conflicts are also because most world leaders today are just skirting around the truth. In our sub-region, it's more of poverty. It's more of poverty because these conflicts are inward. You don't have countries attacking each other. What's happened is coup d'etats within countries. And what are the causes of these coup d'etats? The root causes of these coup d'etats because some members or some classes of the society feel left behind. I've visited all these countries that have gone through coup d'etats in the last few years. And you realize that many people there are seriously disenfranchised, and therefore it's easy to attract them, And with the fall of Libya, where there were a lot of guns that came southward into some of these places with the jihadists, it's easy to attract a lot of these people. It's easy to radicalize them. And that's why I believe that if we can have more people get access to education, we can bring more people into the economic basket, these things will minimize internally, and the need for coup d'etats and the need for attacking each other would go down. I mean, with Ghana specifically, that has been one of our advantages. I mean, we're surrounded by most of these countries, and people ask why is it not taking place in Ghana? Because from the north to the south, from the east to the west, the resources, I wouldn't say they are shared proportionately, but everybody has a stake. And when people feel they have a stake in a country, it's better, and it minimizes the tension. We've had our fair share of coup d'etats, 1966, 1972, 1979, 81. And in our case, in 1979, six of our former heads of state, together with some of the leadership, were shot. General Ikea Champong, General Kufu, and General Fifa were all heads of state. They were killed. They were shot at the stakes together with three of their leading henchmen at that time. And that sent a strong signal through the country. And I think from that base, we'll be able to build up. I think the free SHS is going to help us a lot. more people have been brought into the economic basket. From 800,000, 5 million people, almost 5 million people have been educated within the last 7.5 years. And I believe that that itself is going to help expand our GDP. I think the United Nations, the National Security Council also have to come together because there's a big divide up there. And that is also one of the reasons why we're having these problems all over the world right now. I think you talked about democracy and authoritarianism. I mean, the Middle East, most of their countries are not democratic, but they have relative peace in many of these countries. It's because the economic basket is wide, and I believe that democracy without economic basket is also dangerous, and that's also part of the reasons of what we're seeing in South Africa. But personally, I what happened in South Africa is not bad. It's broken the hegemony of the ANC. Smaller parties now have all come to the table. So let's see what happens. I think it's going to make people more responsible and accountable. And we need to have world leaders who are more responsible and accountable, whether it's authoritarianism or whether it's democracy. I think people have to be accountable to their people, to their nationals, and to the world at large. That is what is missing.
Well, I have to concur with you and agree with you, and I think that let's just go back specifically there to the election, and we got to take a break here in just a minute. So, as far as the election is concerned, do you think there's a clear choice for the people between the kind of Ghana that you're talking about, and do you think that if help us understand the presidential election? Is it going to be if the other side wins or the current administration wins? Will there be a huge difference in the quality of life for everyday Ghanaians?
I mean, each party has its own manifesto, and the ruling party has come out with a clear blueprint about building up what they have already started. The opposition also have come up with their own programs. But as far as democracy in Ghana is concerned, it's not the first time we're going through an election like this. In the year 2000, President Rawlings lost power, and he was regarded as the strong man of Ghana, one of the strong of Africa in those days. Nobody thought that if he lost an election, he would give up power. He did. And President Kufuor came into power. We have a two-term rule of 4 years each. So you do 4 years, you go for elections, and you go for another 4 years, and then you're out. And during Kufuor's time, he done very well for the country and for Africa at large. In fact, he was the EU chairman, and he did a lot of good things. Even when the Kenyan route happened, he was the one who went in and made sure that Kenya is what it is today. So everybody thought his party was going to win. And we had a very strong candidate, our current president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. In the first round, he lost by 43,000 votes. He was short of 43,000 votes to cross 50 plus 1. In our system, you have to get 50 plus 1 for the presidential. In most countries, that would not have happened. The ruling government would not have given up power, but we did. And we went for a second round. He was short by 23,000 votes. We went for a third round, and he lost. The ruling party gave up power, and they came in, which is the NDC, and ruled for 8 years. Now, after 8 years, the sitting president, who had then taken over from his boss, who died in office, wanted a second term, but he lost, and he gave up power.
We were just talking about the Ghanaian presidential election and how Ghana is kind of a symbol, I would say, in my opinion, West Africa, of how power can be democratically transferred. I mean, it's actually an issue that a lot of people. Listen, I as an American, I really do believe that if Biden wins, and that Trump wins, there's always this discussion about the transfer of power in the United States. I think that it will be fine, but let's talk real quick about the presidential election there in Ghana exactly. Where does it stand? I mean, what do you think the outcome will be? And the election is what, in December, correct?
Our elections will be on December 7th, 2024 by midnight on the 9th of December 7th. I'm sure we'll know who our new president is. This is the first time we're trying to, we call it break the eight, where the ruling government is trying to continue. We tried in 2008 and it didn't work. And when I say we here, I belong to the ruling party, the NPP. It's a neck and neck because after 8 years in power, anywhere in the world, people get tired of you. Now, because of COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war, our economy, like most other economies, have also had its fair share of economic challenges. However, the government has done a lot of good things. Like I told you, we've educated almost 5 million Ghanaian kids in the last 7 years. Moved from 800,000, there used to be 800,000 in a senior secondary school. Today, there are 5 million. We've also been able to digitalize our economy, where today, most people in Ghana don't even carry cash because you can just do all your transactions on the mobile phone. We also have the national ID card, where everybody has an ID, and also we've also what's it called? We've, in terms of access to credit and stuff, it's going to be made much easier under the new government. However, after 8 years, you have to show people why they have to give you another chance, and that's what it is about. I believe that the vice president who is leading the government in power will win, but it's going to be a close race. It is a close race, and the former president is also working very hard. But regardless of who wins, Ghana will be the victor because we will move on. We will move on, unlike most countries. I mean, I have a beautiful story. I tell people that I was in Nigeria for the elections when Dr. Goodluck Jonathan lost to Buhari. Everybody thought that Jonathan Goodluck, or most people at that time thought Jonathan Goodluck was going to win. But what happened was he lost. And I remember, because I'd come there to help the PDP in that election, and I remember being in a room with very senior leaders, and one of their campaign aides, a very young lady, got up and said, "But why are you guys so scared that you are giving up power? Ghana does it all the time. You know, Ghana does it all the time." And the room became very quiet. So I think that if we've lost, we've lost. And at that point, I knew Buhari was in power, because everybody who thought that power should not be given just looked at the young lady, and that was it. So we're not going to throw this away for anything by saying that we're going to throw our democracy away. No, we have set the pace in Africa and probably even the world, and we are going to continue with it. The lucky guy will win on the day. But regardless of who is in power, I believe that it's our responsibility as leaders to make sure that our people have access to the basics of education, good health, good infrastructure, and the ability to take care of their families. That is what we're not doing well in most of Africa. I mean, in my previous job, I traveled to almost every single African country. And I'm saying that to our leaders, that should be their focus. The focus should be on developing and making their countries stronger and not themselves. Too many African politicians are richer than their own countries, and that is what we should stop. We should take a lead from what the Asians have done, Singapore and other countries. They build strong countries, and when you build strong countries, you build strong individuals. Recently, I was told that the most important passport in the world is a Singaporean passport. I was surprised. And then I went to check, and it's true. They go to almost every country without a visa, regardless of whether you are a rich Singaporean or a poor Singaporean. That is my dream for my country, Ghana, that one day you pick up the Ghana passport, you can go to any country because it's a Ghanaian passport and it's powerful. It will not be like that case if the individual politicians are rich and the country is poor. So we have to build strong countries.
No, I think it's inspiring, and I do believe that Ghana. I mean, like you, I've been fortunate to travel around the world, and listen, democracy is messy. Democracy is hard. Freedom is hard as well. But what's Ghana's doing, it can and should be a guiding light for not just countries in Africa, but all over the world. And I applaud the efforts of the.
But Dave, before we hang up, I would like to also say that democracy is the best option. Democracy is the best option. It's not because my country goes through elections, but after you've been in power for 20 years, 30 years, there has to be a way of transitioning from one person to the other. And I don't know of any other form that it can be done in a near perfect way than democracy, where people have a voice. When people have a voice, societies triumph. And I believe that, for me, that's why when people say in Ghana that democracy is this, democracy is this, I say we have to give ourselves time. We have to give ourselves time for the institutions to grow. I mean, today a lot of our institutions are quite strong in Ghana. They have the freedom to take decisions, and sometimes when the people are not taking decisions, because the people leading those institutions don't want to make those decisions, not because anybody is after them. And I think as we develop democracy, we also begin to develop stronger human beings, more decisive human beings, more educated human beings, and that collectively will take the nation forward.
Honestly, those are very inspiring words, and I applaud your efforts there in Ghana, and I applaud. It's always great to listening to you and about your thoughts about foreign policy. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'm sure we could talk.
I'm happy to come back again so we can have a longer conversation.
Well, listen, I really do love and appreciate it. But well, good luck for the election. This is Dane Waters with Around the World with Dane Waters. Thanks for joining me while I'm in Ukraine. Next week I will be somewhere else in the world. I'll have to let you know where. But thanks again. And I will be there soon. It could be my next stop. You never know. So thanks. Well, anyway, thanks a lot, everyone. Take care. We'll talk to you next week.